Welcome to the Longevity Man podcast. Today we have Scott Seitz. He is a personal friend of mine. He's a student of mine. He's a coachee of mine. And he is also a leader in his community. Today we're going to be hearing about his life story of adversity and taking care of himself, taking care of others, the importance of social connections and community.
Welcome to the Longevity Man podcast. We discuss all things longevity specifically for men.
So, Scott, welcome to the podcast. Can we know a little bit about you, please?
Sure. I'm going to give you just a broad aspect of my life, I guess, to get started. I was always an overweight little kid, even though I was a swimmer and I played baseball. So I was athletic, but I was overweight. Lost all of that when I went to college. And kept it off for a number of years. So into my late 20s, actually. But I was living corporate lifestyle with, worked at Pepsi for a number of years. So I'm on planes, I'm eating all sorts of horrible food, I'm drinking heavily, partying all the time, and doing the typical thing a 20-something does. And I gained about 70 pounds over time. So, and stopped working out as much, doing all those sorts of things. And, as far as that goes, it really made me. I wasn't really thinking about it because when you're in your 20s and your 30s, you're never going to die. So the flip side of that is I'm gay, and my husband and 40 friends all died in 18 months of one another in the early 90s. So a lot of mental shift happens. I started my company, SPI Marketing, which was totally focused on LGBTQ plus marketing and support of the local communities. And then I also started trying to get healthy again. So, and over time, that's been a bigger and bigger, priority for me because I also have heart disease in my family. So, with that said, if I was going to continue to just maybe try to lose weight, but not exercise and not look at the rest of my health, then, I'm not really accomplishing as much. So, that's kind of where I was when we met, going on 3 years ago, I think. So, that was me really trying to turn things around because I want to live to 90 something. B, I don't want to have the same issues my dad and my granddad, who both died at my current age of massive heart attacks. So I'm being very heart healthy and focused. And then, I think lastly, I want to be around in a healthy, fun way for a long time because I enjoy what I do and I have a great life with my husband of 31 years.
Let's talk about wellness. Let's talk about how you approached your strategy towards longevity, towards wellness, towards health. Can you tell me how you changed from how you took care of yourself a number of years ago, maybe 10, 20 years ago, to now? How has your strategy, how have your goals, your priorities changed over time until now?
There have been a couple of big changes. The first one was recognizing that I had to do something about my weight. I had gotten I've got in high school, I was at like 145 and I went up to 250. So, I've gained weight as well because I was working out and doing stuff. So part of that was natural, but most of that is not. And what I really realized was that's when I started seeing that I became type 2 diabetes, basically. I watched my A1C go up as my weight went up. I was able to bring it down with a little bit of diet and exercise, but that became, over time, that's harder and harder to do. It's not as elastic. It doesn't bounce back as quickly. So I found that I really had to start changing the way I was eating. My husband and I both worked more on moving into much more of a plant-based diet for a long time. We tried paleo, which was very meat-based, but it didn't seem to help. I don't think it was making us healthy in the way that we needed to be. We needed to lose weight. We needed to have, turns out, as I learned in our coaching, I needed to have more fiber, not just losing calories, but gaining fiber in what I was doing. So I really, in the years that I started, I'm 67 now, so probably 10 years ago, I started watching my A1C. I started playing around with my diet. I started trying to exercise more frequently again because, between COVID and commuting into Manhattan every day and everything else, it just became a little harder to squeeze that into your day, or a little easier to not do it, one of the two. So anyway, really, it was a big shift in watching what I ate, how much I ate. Um, I work in the spirits industry often with my clients, so drinking was always happening, and that sort of I started toning that down a little bit as well, which, because the events ended, a lot of the event stuff I did ended during COVID. That was a little bit easier because the events are where you haven't had dinner. There's only appetizers and cocktails available. A disaster as far as trying to take care of your health. So anyway, that's really been the focus. And then I think, and then we came together a little bit because I've had it all my life, but didn't really appear as an issue until the last 10 years, which is I've got a bone spur in my shoulder, and I was having a lot of pain and I couldn't figure out what to do. And physical therapy was somewhat helpful, but it didn't feel like an answer for me. And that's when you started me down the path of understanding what yoga is, as far as my physical therapy shifted into yoga therapy, which was also good because, as I mentioned, I lost a lot of friends during HIV and AIDS. So at that time, I also became a lot more spiritual, a lot more focused on meditating every day. So these changes happened with me because I made them happen. But part of the change was going out and finding you and starting with yoga, which is something I didn't do and I was afraid to because I wasn't even sure I was going to be able to do it. And then moving and then learning more about the diet and playing around with the supplements, which I've always done supplements, but I've been pretty staid as far as the types of supplements and what I thought they were doing for me. And I feel like I've researched that and learned through you a lot more around effective ways to use supplements for my heart, for my mental health, for my spiritual being, and for weight loss. You also have to learn, especially as you get old, as I'm getting, you have to learn to be proactive. And I've learned that through my relationships and through the stuff that I've done in hospitals and with different spiritual groups that I got involved in. I joined 30 years ago. I joined a gay men's spiritual group, mostly of HIV survivors and HIV uh, positive people. We still meet 30 years later on Saturdays to talk about, and it's not about the big, woo woo ha ha, some kind of kooky stuff. It's about, what are you reading? What are you doing to take care of yourself? What are you doing to prevent, in the case of this group, some of them are in their 80s now, and it's really about also reaching out to them and encouraging them to not isolate. So, because that's another aging issue, but it's also part of the gay community, and it's also part of this future administration that we're going to be dealing with. Part of the exhaustion of the last 8 years is going to be people isolating and pulling in. And this is a time where, for your mental health, for your spiritual health, for your physical health, getting out, meeting people, doing more, talking to people, connecting with people, actively supporting and helping other people. That's going to be more important now.
Let's talk about loneliness. This, I think it's an epidemic these days of digitalization, of everything is done through a screen, and how that connects us in more ways, but at the same time disconnects us because everything is screen based. So you don't have people in the flesh in front of you, and we just don't react the same way when it's not in the person, in the flesh. So can you tell us from your experience and maybe sharing from the experiencing from your groups, like the connection that you're able to foster and maintain through your groups. What has that done for you personally? What impact has it had emotionally, psychologically?
Especially with my groups, I've really noticed where and we're like, I don't know, my men's group is maybe 9 to 12 people every Saturday, but we really coach and help each other out. And most people don't have those outlets. So, and when I say coach and help each other, we get in our own slump. One of the guys has his husband is having some issues and his dog is ill. And it's like, and you hear his conversation and you watch him sink, and multiple of us on the call, we're like, you need to stop, you need to do this, you need to start, you're sitting and staying, you need to move, you need to have action, you need to have a plan that makes you feel good, and or whatever the case may be. So I really feel like there's there's a limit on what Zoom can do, but I would also go back to the with the with our current government situation and the conservative governments around the world right now. This community, my community, is under attack. And so being out there and supportive of somebody else and being in a room where you can give them a hug, or being a part of volunteering for, we just did a transgender prom night for some kids in December. There were like 55 kids there. I mean, it was amazing. So like going out and doing stuff, it feeds you, it encourages you, it builds your mental health and strength, but you're helping the world, and you're helping these other people who maybe don't know how to ask for help, or you're at least giving them the opportunity to engage with you and ask questions and maybe get some help. So we cannot give up. Texting is like horrible. It's easy. It makes things happen fast, but the level of expectations that people have, and the inability to string together a sentence or really hear what somebody else has to say start disappearing, and that's not good for mental health.
There's nothing like in person. Like I remember the day that I met you in person, it was such a different experience. It was like you in the flesh, like so much more real. There's so much more data. There's so much more I don't know what to, like just energy. I could feel your energy. And that happens the same with anyone else. It's just like meeting them in the flesh is a very different experience. But we're going in a different direction where it's just more convenient to do everything online, and so we're losing that in-person connection.
There's a book many years ago by John Nesbitt called High Tech, High Touch, and it was talking about the more tech we get, the more need we have for that personal interaction. And I don't think that's really, it's evolved in the way that we've evolved, but I think that's still very true. My worry about all of this stuff is the isolation that it's creating, and the lack of just nuancing and the ability to communicate the way you really need to be able to communicate. So I do feel like I'll always go back to the personal part, but you also have to make yourself available. I know when we talk to other friends who moved here from another state, and they're concerned about, like, well, how do you meet people? I love them to death. They don't make themselves available. You have to show up. You can't you can't sit at home and say, why am I not meeting people? you you have to go to an event, or go or start a group, or join a book club, or whatever those sorts of things, as lame as they may sound. Join the bowling league, start playing softball again, whatever you want to do, but get out there and do it, and meet more people, and meet a range of people. If I was still in corporate America, I would know a very specific set of human beings. And now I know people from all walks of life, of every single color, of every single size, shape, and age, and perspectives. I grew up in a little town in Michigan, and they referred to Italian as Italian, and they and I went to Italy, and I looked at all this stuff, and I thought, oh God, this is ugly. You go to Italy and you're like, this is beautiful. This is that you've learned a new culture, and you've learned to really appreciate it in a very big way. And that's what, that's what we don't have to go to Italy. You have to just go outside your front door or down to the local community center or do something.
How do you talk to guys your age who are not partnered, maybe in a new state, in a new place, it's like, and they're desperately seeking for more connection? What kind of suggestions, or from your experience, ways would you suggest for them to do that?
But I'm just looking over here because How to Know a Person by David Brooks is a great book for people to just, for people who, and many people already know all the things he's going to talk about in there, but there's always a nuance there that's very helpful about how do you approach other people? What do you say? What do you talk to? Start a plan with, like, where is my toe in the water, and where do I go? Don't go into an immediate situation that's going to totally freak you out the first time. Find a small book group, or, I'm not doing it yet, but there's a gay crocheting group up here that I'm thinking about. Just go find us. Really go and do some research. We started the wine group just by going to what's called Nextdoor. I think it's a neighborhood app where all the neighborhood people can kind of network with each other. We put it out there, and not everybody's comfortable with this, nor should they be. But for us, we put it out there that we wanted to start a gay coffee group. And, there were a couple of people that said, why is it just gay? Interestingly, all the other neighbors came back and said, this is okay, lay off, don't get into this. Like, they protected that whole idea. And that's actually where our now gay wine group, evolved from. Um, so think about, what do you want to do? What do you find interesting? Where else can you be? Join an art group, join a painting club, join a poetry group, or find these people and at least just go make a meeting. Go to your, potentially even look at your local church if that's something you may want to do. These are all, the key thing is research different options and make them happen, because that it's about getting out the front door.
Absolutely. And just to finish off, I'd like to say that so much of the work that we do in community, whether it's the community, where we all share and receive, but also the community situations where we give, that creates that social web, the social connections, the sense of caring, the sense of union, the sense of belonging, community, that we so need. Because the opposite of that is each one for his or her own, and then we're just separate, you know individuals living in the same space. But if there's nothing really connecting us, we can't really call ourselves a society, a community. And that can lead to very horrible situations, socially, politically, economically. Just as a way to wrap up, many of the things that we've talked about today, it's about highlighting the importance of caring for ourselves, self care, as a way to be able to care for others. If we're not in a good place, there's just no way we're going to be able to care of others. And then, secondly, the importance of the social aspects in wellness and self care, and being part of a community, being part of a group, whatever that may be, is an investment into our wellness, into our longevity. And just to finish, Scott, if people want to reach out, because they're in Connecticut in the New Haven, Yale area, or just simply they want to say thank you for participating in the podcast, where can people reach out to you?
Sure. I think the best thing is to probably look me up on LinkedIn or Facebook. You can reach me, or you can email me. So my email is just Scott, SCOTT, and my company is at spimarketing.com. So, and then I'm Scott Seitz on LinkedIn, and I'm Scott Seitz also on Facebook. I have a personal page and a business page.